Alright everybody, welcome back. This is Bolo 11, the further progress of the frame handle on our integral Bolo. Also, if you could take a moment, don't forget to hammer that like button. And hey, even subscribe maybe if this video doesn't totally suck. Up to you. Much appreciated either way. Now, we are fitting in the tang block into the frame here. And we want to be careful, use files. I roughed it in with the portaband bandsaw. Just a rough notch. Then cleaning it up, putting a light chamfer on there with a needle file. And just taking off a little bit at a time, checking the fit as we go. Because we want this to remain a press fit, a light press fit. We don't want any slop in this. So you can see we're just being real careful, checking it. And I will let you see how, well, part of how much work that was in a speeded up fashion. So that's good progress. We got it to start sticking in there by hand. And make sure all the leading edges of the fit are chamfered. That's going to help it stick in with less galling. Flipped it around here. Did a little bit more work. Now you can see that I have a small notch filed in the top of the tang block on one side. There is a corresponding notch as a match mark in the frame on that side. That way it's always real easy for me to tell what the original orientation of the tang block is. I just put that little notch in with the corner of a needle file. After forging the frame, it was annealed, so it's pretty much dead soft right now. Then surface ground. Then this step of fitting in the tang block. The tang block is not drilled yet. Now we've got it fit partway in by hand. And we're going to take it over to the drill press and put the hole for the tang in it. And we're using a wire-sized drill bit. Offhand, I can't remember exactly which one. It's slightly undersized for 3/16, because we don't want a sloppy fit anywhere on this knife. We want this to be a tight sliding fit, more or less, on the threads at the end of the tang. And then we also will be countersinking it, just so it leads onto that kind of swell at the end of the tang. The shoulder, you should say, of the threaded parts. And actually, this is a little scrap of softened Damascus, which is also a cut out from the inside of the frame. So, same material. I don't actually have an arbor press right now. So here I'm using my milling vise to press in the tang block for the first time. And once we get that done, we will be able to go and check and see how it fits on the actual tang and guard of the knife. We know we did good because it just takes a slight bit of joggling around to get things to pop together. And here we are, seated up initially to the back of the guard. That's all the results we expected to see for now. Clearances come later. You can see it's sprung a little too wide, so we're going to need to refine that press fit and take a little bit off the ends so the guard frame doesn't get pushed out. Alrighty, let's have a look at this. So I've gotten this to where we've got a light press fit in here. Got to tap it in with a hammer, but it doesn't take too much force. We have a slight gap here on the top. I am going to bend this a little bit shut and fix that because we want that to be flush. Ultimately, the pins will hold it in place, but we want to put it just where we want it before we even fit it for the pins. I've got the tang fit through and just a temporary nut installed to draw it all up. Now that we know how everything is aligned, we can fix little issues like this side of the frame is a little shorter than this side of the frame, so we're going to grind the top back a little bit. But that's good progress. You can see that we're nice and straight with the blade. Well, let me shift that a little bit. Nice and straight with the blade on that frame. So we're going to be fitting the alignment pins to the front, fitting the front of the frame even better yet to the back of the guard. And then the next job will be make a permanent nut, and then after that start fitting the ivory to the frame here. Okay, so we drilled holes in the ends of this. Undersized drill bit. Hole's still a little oversized, but not by too much. See? Little studs. 16th inch stainless. And we took and put these little stainless pins in a cordless drill at high speed and belt ground points on them while running the drill with 120 grit. So now we have 2 points. Now we can take and put the tang end of the block here, or the end of the tang, through the tang block. And we can hold this up to the now die-cammed rear face of the integral guard and scratch lightly up and down. Let's have a look. Yes, we've got marks. I had previously made vertical center marks in the end of this, but now you can see we've got hole locations. So now I'm going to carefully center punch those and we'll drill them. Firing up the spindle motor on the lathe there, and I'm picking a speed off the chart. 453 RPM, changing gears, engaging the chuck for the spindle motor a few times, or the clutch, to prime the oil pump to the actual lathe carriage. We're extending the tailstock. I'm going to describe kind of what I'm doing just in general terms as we go through this for some of y'all that aren't real familiar with lathe work yet, or maybe you just got one and you kind of could use, you know, just being a fly on the wall and seeing just some normal lathe operations. Some of you guys may be actual machinists and you'll be, you know, commenting with like 5 or 6 different better ways of doing what I'm doing probably, but here's just some basic lathe work. I've got a pin vise holding a very small drill bit, and what I previously did was I used a center drill to mark the center of the end of this 1/4 inch piece of stainless rod stock. And now I'm following that up with this little drill bit. Gosh, I can't remember exactly what number it is right now. It's just a little undersized for 1/16. That's like the next wire size up from 1/16. Like a 53 maybe? 53 or 4. because drill bits always cut a little oversized, and I want this to fit a 1/16 bit pretty closely. You'll see. I'm holding it in the Jacobs Rubber Flex collet chuck. That's holding the 1/4 inch rod stock here. I got about a 4.5 inch piece of 300 series stainless chucked up in a collet. And now I'm just very carefully pecking at the end of this, drilling a hole, adding plenty of oil, not feeding too hard. I don't like breaking little bits. Tighten up that pin vise a little more. We're going to go for about a 3/8 depth on this hole, maybe 7/16. And this is going to actually be holding the shank of a number 53 drill bit. It's important that it be centered exactly in the end of that stainless bar. So I made sure to align the tail stock and get a good center with my center drill. So there we're taking the pin vise out. The pin vise holds smaller bits than just the big Jacobs chuck will. Now we're going to take the Jacobs chuck out by retracting the tailstock quill until the taper gets shoved out of the end of that. Morse taper 4. Now we're undoing the collet chuck. Got to slam it wrong way a couple of times. First by accident, like usual, and then lefty-loosey, like actually works. Taking our piece out. And now we are going to braze a bit into the end of the rod. I did that off camera. All I did was I heated the end of the rod, dripped some brass, some brazing brass in there with some flux, then pushed the bit down inside of it, gave it a little post heat, and voila. The bit does have a little bit of run out, but not an excessive amount, and as long as we got a quality center punch on the inside faces of the guard, which I used a long, thin transfer punch actually to get to, as a standard center punch had too fat of a body with the interference caused by the tang to really get a center punch in the locations that we needed to. At any rate, that causes the bit not to wander as it starts. As long as you get it started, that little bit of run out won't matter even a little bit. So now we're drilling, just really carefully pecking at it, making sure that bit doesn't wander. Got that one done. Now we're coming around the back side, and you can see the body of that extendo drill barely clears. But we got the angle that we needed. And I used that 1/4 inch just because I had a extendo bit that I made with a smaller added shank, and it just had a little more flex than I liked. So this 1/4 inch just gives a more solid feel, I think. Alrighty, let's take a look. So we've got holes drilled here and here for alignment pins. We've got alignment pins installed in the ends of our frame and the tang block. So first we're going to put through the tang block. We're going to find where those pins want to align there. We're going to see if we can shove it home. Yeah. Frame is straight with the handle. Not much of a bump here. Everything eminently fittable now. Tang block feels good. Handle feels pretty secure. Let's put the temporary nut on the end of the tang here. And have a go at tightening that down temporarily. And see how it feels. Now, the fit is not perfect yet. It is, the top of the frame here is still a little bit longer than the bottom of the frame, so I'm going to have to address that, but you can see we are quite close at any rate to having a fit up frame entirely. And then once we do, we'll be free to go ahead and start fitting the ivory to the frame here. Come on, wrench. Trying to find a wrench that fits better. Anyway. Yep. Feels flush. Feels good. Looks straight. Cool. Yep, that's a good fit up. I'm gonna call that a success. Feels solid. Cool. More to come.